I understand that this is your first posting in Asia as well as in, of course, South Asia. Pakistan, as you know, is strategically placed. Canada, when it comes to North America, the other assignments that you have done in your diplomatic career or otherwise, how do you feel this assignment is different, or what is the importance of this?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for your interest in Canada, and it's a pleasure to meet you and have the opportunity to exchange views with you. As you mentioned, I am new to Asia and to South Asia. I have spent many years abroad, but mostly in Africa and in Latin America, so I'm discovering a new part of the world. I'm very happy to be here in Pakistan. Sometimes I say I have an easy job because I'm so well received by Pakistanis. Canada has a very good image in Pakistan, and we have a partnership, our two countries, that dates back to the earliest years since independence. It includes development assistance programming, it includes trade and investment relations, political ties, and in the area of education, there's growing activity.
The recent statistics that I was looking at for the Canadian Bureau of International Education's conference in Halifax, I think in December 2016, it revealed that almost 400,000 international students are now in Canada, which speaks about the strengths. However, only 1% of them are from Pakistan. It's stagnant or reducing. What would your comments on that, if you?
Well, the first thing I would say is overall there's been a great increase in the number of foreign students in Canada. Personally, I studied in university in the early 1980s, and I remember at that time that meeting a foreign student in one of the classes was an exotic experience. They were very few and far between, maybe one in a class of 40 or 50 students. Whereas today, I've recently visited some university campuses in Canada, and you see very large numbers of international students from Pakistan and many other countries. In saying that our number of foreign students is up, I think it's over 400,000 now. Something like 4,200 Pakistani students, which, as you point out, maybe it's just 1% of the total, but we are in fact seeing that number grow. Pakistan is now our 13th largest source of foreign students, and I believe as we look to the years ahead that we will see Pakistan move up from 13th position to 10th and maybe 7th or 6th. Given the size of Pakistan, the size of the population, and the fact that there are growing numbers of Pakistanis who are looking for opportunities to study abroad. While the numbers are still fairly modest, I see momentum and potential there to increase the number of Pakistani students. My sense is that among the community of Canadian educational institutions, universities and others, technical colleges and so forth, my sense is that there is growing interest in Pakistan. The population, we now know based on the census that there are 208 million Pakistanis. Well, the census was taken a year ago, so now there are 210 or 211 million. So it's a large population and a growing economy. So more and more people with the means and the interest of sending their children abroad. And as I said at the outset, I find here in Pakistan that, and I'm happy to say this, I think Canada is viewed very positively, and therefore I expect to see growing numbers of Pakistani students considering Canada as a destination for study. Some of the reasons why I think our country is attractive, first of course is the quality of the education. We have many world-class universities, we have a great diversity of programs. But also we have a country that is known for its multiculturalism. When you visit Canada, and I know you've had the opportunity to travel there, especially in our cities, you meet people from all over the world, not just students, but many immigrants from different parts of the world, and Canadians get along very well. We see our diversity as a strength, different languages, different religions, and so forth. And so a foreign student, whether from Pakistan or Brazil or China or anywhere else, can arrive in Canada and feel very much at home. We also have a safe country. Our crime rate is low. Our country is bilingual, so it's an opportunity. Pakistanis who travel abroad normally know English already, but they can learn French as well if they choose to study in a French-speaking part of the country. and the cost of education is competitive with other countries. So I think there's a whole range of reasons that make Canada an interesting option for Pakistani students, and that's why I'm so optimistic that the numbers will continue to grow.
Excellency, since you mentioned about the education expos, and I had the opportunity of working very closely with the Canadian institutions. In the last couple of years, when we write to, and I have been, I'm thankful to your Trade Commission in Pakistan, who has greatly supported us. We as a young media group organized an international expo in 4 cities, which concluded last Friday. And we had over 4,000 students visiting us during this expo, which was, an international expo that was dedicated to higher education and research and all that. When I went back to my partners and stakeholders, their view in terms of the Pakistani students, one distinct was they were inclined to say that they didn't get visas for the students. 13 and 14, the numbers were very good, and the rejection was, usual. That could have been, barriers should be there to let bona fide students. But this year and 2016, that was pretty bad. So have you got any statistics on that?
Well, let me say on visas, we have a department, the Department of Immigration, that is responsible for issuing visas, and that department takes decisions on the basis of each individual application. And it's not something that I'm personally responsible for. I don't have power over the decision of visas, decisions related to visas. As you correctly mentioned, a decision was taken by the Immigration Department a couple of years ago to centralize processing of visa applications in Abu Dhabi for quite a number of countries. It's not just for Pakistan, it's for the region. I believe the thinking was to benefit from economies of scale and provide the most efficient service. The good news is many Pakistanis do receive visas to study in Canada. We talked about the figure of something over 4,000 that are studying there. It's unfortunate that some other students apply and are not successful in getting the visa. In applying for the visa, the student has to be able to demonstrate that he or she or his or her family has the means to support his or her stay in Canada. I imagine that in many instances when student applicants do not get a visa, it's probably because the visa officer is not convinced that the family has the resources available to cover the study. And those resources could come from the family's own resources, or maybe there's a scholarship either from the university or from the government of Pakistan.
We don't see that much, collaboration or such visits in terms of institutional linkages, twinning arrangements, or what we define as transnational education or cross-border education. Yes. There is a huge potential in Pakistan, but I don't see the way, the fact that the Canadian institutions consider Pakistan not as a focus market, perhaps that's the reason. How can we together, using our media houses or stakeholders, encourage those institutions come together for a more solid foundation?
That I am seeing some interest, and there are a number of agreements in place and programs in place between universities in the two countries. For example, the Aga Khan University in Karachi has partnerships with several universities in Canada. For example, they have one with the University of Calgary in the area of nursing. There was recently an MOU signed between the Lahore Government College University and Guelph University in Ontario to develop a database of the DNA of all the plants and animals in Pakistan. So that's more in the research area as opposed to teaching. But these are a couple of examples, and there are quite a few others. So the activity is starting there, but I think you're right that we're only scratching the surface. There's a potential to be doing a lot more, and it's our job collectively, everyone who's committed to this cause, including myself, to get the word out to our institutions in Canada and in Pakistan, to encourage them to look at opportunities in the years ahead.
Do you think that because Canada, Excellency, does not have a federal education ministry, and it's more like the pan-Canadian issues in terms of getting the stakeholders on board, because most of it is down to the provinces. They would like to do things on their own. How we can look at such collaborations coming in, finding ways and means. You think, is this a barrier that because there is no federal education ministry controlling these things?
Well, I see you're very well informed about Canada. I'm not sure if I'd call it a barrier, but it is the reality that Canada is a federal system, and we have clearly defined separation of responsibilities between the federal government and the provinces, and education for the most part falls within the provincial jurisdiction. So by all means we have to be working and talking to the provinces because the federal role is somewhat limited. But also many of these decisions in terms of launching specific projects and programs, they come right down to the level of the institution itself. So in my experience, often the key is arousing the interest, piquing the interest of key people in the universities, get them interested about an opportunity, and then things start to happen in the years ahead.
And the other important aspect that could help us project the international student mobility, as you know, obviously, would be the availability of scholarships and fund. OECD countries, which have specific scholarships. We also, part of Commonwealth, have Commonwealth scholarships. But there are dedicated scholarships to Pakistan by other countries. We don't see as much as from Canada. I was looking at the Maple Leaf scholarship schemes. Would it be possible to look at sort of redesigning Maple Leaf or giving it a new shape where we can incorporate Pakistan in terms of some dedicated scholarship?
At the present time, as far as I know, I'm not aware of any Pakistan-specific scholarships that are offered. The High Commission itself does not have any scholarships. The Government of Canada has a few scholarship programs that are universal. They're open to foreign students from around the world. And many of our universities have their scholarship programs, which for the most part tend to be open to everyone. And as an example, the University of Toronto, which is a highly respected Canadian university, I think they offer 37 scholarships a year to foreign students, and last year 3 Pakistanis secured those, 3 out of 37, so almost 10%. But the numbers are fairly small. It would be nice to see greater numbers.